Well, now, hello there, my friends. Pull up a chair, get yourself comfortable. You've wandered into another episode of Forgotten Stories, where we dust off the mysteries time has tried to bury and share them together, nice and slow, like an old man telling bedtime tales. And that's just what I am. An old man with more stories than my knees have aches. And believe me, that's a mighty big number. Now, before we begin, let me warn you, I may take a break or two along the way. I'm 60 years old, can't sit still too long, and sometimes I need a sip of water or maybe even my medicine. But don't you worry. When I step away, I'll always come back. And the story will be waiting. Tonight, we've got ourselves a real haunting tale, one that has lingered in the hearts of Cleveland, Ohio for more than 70 years. A tale about a little girl named Beverly Potts, 10 years old, vanished one warm summer evening in 1951. And to this very day, no one knows for certain what happened to her. So, lean in closer, friends. This isn't just a case. It's a mystery woven with childhood innocence, neighborhood streets, and the ache of a family that never saw their little girl again. Let's start with the world Beverly lived in. Cleveland, Ohio. The year was 1951. The war had ended not too long ago. Folks were buying homes, raising families, and America was booming with optimism. But for kids, life was simple. You played in the streets, you ran through the grass, you chased fireflies at night. Parents let you roam more freely back then, believing the world was safer than it really was. The Potts family lived on Linnet Avenue, in a modest little house. Not rich, not poor, just your everyday American folks. Beverly herself was a quiet girl, serious for her age. Some said she was almost too grown up, too cautious for just 10 years old. She loved music, art, and she had a best friend, little Patricia, who lived nearby. Together they did what children did best in the summer. They explored, they whispered secrets, they planned adventures. Now let me paint the scene for you. The streets of Cleveland's West Side in August. The grass is still green, the evenings are warm, and the local park, Howerin Park, was alive with the sound of children practicing for the big neighborhood show, the Show Wagon. It was a traveling program sponsored by the city, letting kids perform music, dance, and skits for the community. To a child, it was pure magic. I can still picture it, the old bandstand, the folding chairs, parents fanning themselves with programs, kids laughing in the twilight. It was the kind of simple entertainment that stitched neighborhoods together. And Beverly, oh, she wanted to see that show wagon. She wasn't performing, no. She was the kind of girl who liked to watch, to take it all in. That evening, August 24th, 1951, she begged her mother Elizabeth for permission to go with Patricia to Howerin Park. Now, Elizabeth Potts was a cautious woman. She didn't often let Beverly go out at night. But this event, it was special, and it was just down the street. Reluctantly, she agreed. She even told Beverly to be home no later than 9 o'clock. Now imagine Beverly in that moment, her little face lighten up, rushing to grab her friend, skipping down the sidewalk as the night stretched its arms open. The park wasn't far, just a short walk, but to a child it must have felt like freedom. As the show went on, Beverly and Patricia stood among the crowd, watching, giggling, clapping along with the performances. But as twilight deepened into night, the two girls made a choice. Patricia wanted to leave early, while Beverly said she'd stay a little longer. And that, my friends, was the last time anyone ever saw Beverly Potts alive. By 9:30, Elizabeth Potts grew worried. By 10 o'clock, the Potts home was in a panic. Neighbors searched. Parents called out into the night air, and before long, the Cleveland police were alerted. A child gone missing. In 1951, that was still considered unusual, shocking. Most missing kids turned up within a few hours, but not Beverly. Picture this. The police cars rolled up to Howerin Park. Flashlights swept through the grass, beams of light cutting across the bandstand and the emptying crowd. Officers questioned parents, performers, children. Did anyone see a little girl, 10 years old, brown hair, wearing a checkered blouse? Elizabeth's voice trembled as she repeated the description again and again. Neighbors whispered, wondering if Beverly had simply wandered off. Maybe she was playing hide and seek. But her parents knew better. Beverly wasn't the kind of child to run off without telling someone. She was cautious, careful. And the later the night grew, the more certain it became something terrible had happened. By morning, Cleveland was buzzing with the news. Newspapers splashed her photograph across their front pages. Volunteers gathered at the park, combing through every inch of grass and shrub. They searched backyards, garages, even storm drains. Hundreds of people searching for one little girl. Elizabeth Potts, exhausted, clutched a handkerchief to her lips. Her husband, Robert, tried to stay strong, but his eyes betrayed his fear. Their daughter had vanished without a trace. No struggle, no clues, just gone. And oh, the theories began. Some thought Beverly had been lured away by a stranger. Others whispered about men seen lingering near the park. Police questioned dozens, then hundreds. The community's sense of safety was shattered. Parents who once let their kids roam until dark now clutched them tighter, forbidden late nights at the park. Serious tone. One man was questioned heavily, a neighbor known for watching children a little too closely. Another, a drifter spotted in the area, raised suspicions. But none of it stuck. Every lead fell apart. Every hopeful clue turned into a dead end. Cleveland, a city alive with industry and optimism, found itself haunted by the face of a missing girl. For months, folks would tape her picture to shop windows, churches, telephone poles. And here's the thing, friends. This case didn't just fade into the background. No. It grew stranger. Letters began arriving years later, letters claiming to be from the man who took her. Confessions appeared, then disappeared. Witnesses came forward decades after the fact. And through it all, the Potts family never stopped waiting for Beverly's return. Now, I've been talking quite a while, haven't I? Old man's throat gets drier faster than his memory. Let me step away, take a sip of water, maybe stretch these old legs of mine. But don't you go anywhere, smile in voice, because when I come back, we'll dive deeper into the mystery, the suspects, the letters, the decades of haunting silence. And trust me, the best part of this story is still to come. Ah, you're still here. Good. I was afraid you might have snuck off on me while I was getting that drink of water. I tell you, a story like this deserves company. It's not the kind of thing you just tell to an empty room. It needs listeners, folks like you, leaning in close. So thank you for sticking with me. Now then, where were we? Ah, yes, little Beverly, vanishing into the Cleveland night. The search was on, the city was in shock, and the Potts family was holding on by threads of hope. But what came after? Oh, that's where this story turns from heartbreak into legend. The suspects, the whispers, and the haunting letters. Police in 1951 weren't working with the fancy DNA and computers you and I take for granted today. Nope, it was shoe leather and notepads. Detectives knocking on doors, writing down every lead in spiral notebooks. They interviewed more than 1,000 people over the first weeks. Men who lived near the park, teenagers who hung around the show, workers who'd passed through the neighborhood. Each one was questioned, checked, then cleared. But none of it brought Beverly back. Now, picture the Potts street in the days after her disappearance. Neighbors stood on porches, arms folded, watching the police walk up and down the block. Mothers whispered over fences, telling their children not to leave the yard. Fathers sat with newspapers trembling in their hands, reading the latest updates. The whole community felt violated, as if something had been stolen from them too. And inside the Potts home, well, that was the hardest place of all. Elizabeth Potts, Beverly's mother, was consumed by guilt. "Why did I let her go?" she asked, again and again. She'd been protective her whole life, but just this once, she'd said yes. That yes would haunt her for the rest of her days. Robert, her father, tried to be the rock. He went to work. He spoke with the police. He answered reporters' questions. But in the quiet of night, neighbors said they could hear him weeping on the porch steps. Their other daughter, Anita, older than Beverly, was caught in the middle, struggling with the weight of her parents' sorrow while missing her little sister deeply. Families don't just lose a child in these cases. They lose a piece of themselves. Every holiday becomes a reminder. Every empty chair, another wound. And oh, the rumors. They spread like wildfire. Folks swore they'd seen Beverly getting into a strange car. Others insisted a suspicious man had been hanging around the park. Police followed up, chasing each rumor to the end. but none led anywhere solid. One man stood out, though. His name was Harold, a neighbor who some said had an odd interest in children. He was questioned, even shadowed by police, but without evidence they couldn't hold him. Another suspect was a transient drifting through Cleveland at the time. His alibi was shaky, but once again, nothing stuck. And so the case dragged on. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and before long, a year had passed with no sign of Beverly. Then, years later, something strange happened. Letters began arriving. Letters claiming to be from the man who had taken Beverly. These weren't just anonymous scribbles. They were detailed, eerie. The writer described how he had lured Beverly, what he had done, and how he had kept her hidden. Some letters even gave dates, promises that he would reveal the truth soon, that he would turn himself in. But he never did. Now some folks thought these letters were hoaxes, cruel pranks from someone who wanted attention. But others wondered if they were real, if the man who wrote them truly was the one who knew Beverly's fate. Now, imagine being Elizabeth Potts, opening your mail and finding a letter like that. Hope tangled with dread, relief mixed with terror. Was Beverly alive? Was she gone? Or was someone just playing with her broken heart? By the 1960s, the case had gone cold. Detectives retired, evidence was boxed away, and Cleveland moved on. But the Potts family couldn't move on. Elizabeth kept Beverly's room tidy, just as it had been the night she disappeared. A small desk, a bed neatly made, the belongings of a child frozen in time. Neighbors said Elizabeth never smiled quite the same again. Robert grew older, quieter, and Anita, she built her own life, but the shadow of her missing sister followed her everywhere. Then came the confessions. Over the decades, men stepped forward, claiming they had taken Beverly. One confessed on his deathbed, saying he had lured her with candy. Another wrote to police, insisting he had buried her in a field. Each time investigators dug in, literally and figuratively, but each confession unraveled. Lies, fabrications, attention seekers. The truth remained hidden. Even in the 1980s and 1990s, the case was still alive in Cleveland's memory. Reporters wrote anniversary articles, detectives dusted off the file, and every so often someone would swear they remembered something, an old neighbor, a forgotten detail. But always it led nowhere. So what are we left with, my friends? A little girl named Beverly Potts, who walked into the twilight of an August evening in 1951 and never came home. A family broken, a community shaken, and a city that never forgot. Today, you can still find her story online, in old newspapers, in the whispers of Cleveland's history. She's become more than just a missing child. She's a symbol of innocence lost, a reminder of how fragile safety really is. And though decades have passed, some folks in Cleveland still say her name, still wonder, still hope that maybe, just maybe, the truth will someday come out. My dear friends, mysteries like this, They don't end neatly. Not every story has a bow tied on top. Some stay open, unsolved, gnawing at the edges of memory. And maybe that's why we tell them, so the people we lose aren't forgotten, so their names live on even when their footsteps have vanished.
Thank you for sitting with me through this long, heavy tale. I know it wasn't easy, but it was important, because somewhere out there, Beverly's story still matters. And maybe someday, in some dusty box of evidence or in the fading memory of an old neighbor, the answer will finally be found. Until then, keep her in your thoughts. And if you enjoyed sharing this story by the firelight with me, well, don't be shy. Pass it on. Subscribe, share, tell a friend. You never know whose heart a forgotten story might touch. And now I think this old man's voice has run its course for tonight. My tea's gone cold and these bones are begging me for rest. So until next time, my friends, take care of each other and never forget the stories time tries to erase.